And so finally, what I want to talk to you about is D3 force. So the D3 force layout is a slight bit different from what we had talked through just now with the shapes and hierarchies, in that it directly mutates the original data array, and you'll see in a little bit why. And also that it requires upwards of like thousands of calculations to arrive at its its final position, instead of just that one single calculation that we saw with the shape and hierarchy. But it's probably one of my most favorite layout modules, my favorite layout tool, because of how powerful it is. It's most traditionally used to calculate positions for a node and link graph, but because of kind of all of the different because of all of the different functionality it has, you can actually get quite creative with how you apply the force layout. So this is what this is actually a very classic example of a D3 force layout. And this is, the data set is Les Mis, and each of these are characters, each of these notes are characters in the play or musical and musical play. And then each of the links are the characters' co-occurrence with each other in, I believe, each act or each chapter. And I think they're colored by the family. What you can see is that with the nodes, the force layout asks for an array of nodes. And so this is with ID, and these objects have just the ID, which is their name and the group they belong to. And optionally, the force layout asks for an array of links. And so in the array of links, it says the source, and that source ties directly back to the ID attribute in the nodes, and target similarly ties directly back to the ID element and some value. And so the way that we use the force layout is we say, this is the relevant piece of code from that Les Mis example, which is that we create force simulation, pass in our nodes, and we say the first force that I want to apply. Actually, it doesn't quite, I don't think it matters as much the order for these forces. And if there is, and if it does matter, I haven't quite noticed that big of a difference in how to order them. But certainly, like, if things are not turning out the way you expect, just like try moving them around a little bit. But to my knowledge, from all of my experience, I don't think the order of how the forces that you specify in this chain matters. And I'm saying that, take that with a grain of salt, please. But anyways, we're saying that we want to first apply a force of link, and we're passing our array of links, and we're telling D3 that in this array of links, the way that it maps to our nodes, it's through this ID attribute in our nodes. And alternatively, if you pass in an array of links that already directly references each of the nodes repel from each other. And if you specify a positive charge, it attracts the nodes to each other. So I think of like force many body as like planets or like stars or just like the universe. And then I just think of it like the planets and like it has this force that just says we want each of our nodes to be attracted to the center. And this is only a subset of the forces that are available with D3 force. And you can see the rest of it in the tell how to do that in the module reference also. And finally, the most important part is that on is being able to update the node and link positions on each tick. So what does all of this mean? It loops through each of the nodes and applies the series of forces that we specified up here. There's 3 of them here. You can have more or less. And we apply the series of forces so that with attractive forces, the nodes pull towards each other. So it actually kind of like loops applies the force on that particular node. And so the most common attractive force is when nodes are linked. And so that will make them get positioned closer to each other, nudged closer to each other. Negative forces node and nudges them slightly, nudges the XY position slightly, and it loops through each of there's like some other settings you can like toggle and play with the force layout that we won't really go into in here, but will kind of help you get closer to the quote unquote optimal layout, and that you can also read in the end. And so this is what I mentioned earlier about the force layout is a little bit different because not only does it calculate the original data set you passed in, and then on each tick it mutates it, and then on the next tick it uses that mutated one like as reference, and it kind of like goes in in that series of ticks. And that's why it mutates the data array directly.